Hello and welcome. This is Lavern with the Fantasy Grounds Academy. What I'm going to be doing today is taking a little break from my game prep and diving into some character creation. Now, this might be a little boring for some of you that already know how to build characters, but this is a refresher and a reminder to take that character and put in the extra work and actually come up with a good backstory and some assets to make your gameplay much more immersive and fun and also more detailed for the game master. Now, I don't need to say that you should create a whole novel for the character, but don't have a one-liner like, oh, I'm an elf from the forest. I mean, that doesn't really do much. So I'm going to do is detail a character that I envisioned today, and I just had this hankering to make it. And this is a 4th level ranger type. Her name is Thaliara. She's a female wood elf. She's like an archer. It's got kind of some of the cliche type background type stuff, but also some interesting stuff. So we're going to dive into that. But first, I want to go through a little checklist here. So this is kind of part of my script for the show. So what we want to do is plan your build. So I've already done this part, but you want to research the game system, understand the rules a little bit, get kind of familiar with some of the mechanics, and learn the limits of the system, in which includes Fantasy Grounds. So like in this case, we're going to be discussing DnD5e, but it could be Pathfinder or whatever rule set you're into. Then you're going to read up on your class, subclasses, the archetypes, things that align with your concept. So for instance, Thaliara is going to be an Arcane Archer, I think. Background and lore. So knowing the setting a little bit and its lore helps you to root your character firmly in the game world. So in this case, this would be Forgotten Realms and the High Forest, that sort of thing. The next step is to communicate with your players and your GM. You want to ask the GM so he can offer you insights into the setting and any house rules that might be used to affect your character build and that sort of thing. And then for GMs, you should talk to your players about their abilities or storylines, and also to help them carve their niche within the team, and also to prevent any redundancies within the party. It's okay to have a little bit of redundancy, but not too much. Also, if you're the person creating the character, try to imagine this. So you want to visualize, have a clear mental image of the character, and not just in terms of appearance, but also behavior, voice, maybe some noticeable scars, some little things. Role-playing. Consider their alignment, motivations, fears, flaws, kind of what drives them to adventure. That really helps with immersion, gives you kind of a way to stick to your goals, that sort of thing. And then, not to mention resources. So in some cases, the players are kind of at the mercy of the GM. So you won't always have the books and all the things you need to create the characters, except for when you join the GM's campaign and they bring up their table and offer you to build characters that way. But another way you can do this is to take a look at the DM's Guild. They have guides on there. You can also, if you have a D&D Beyond account, you can research your build there. You can also watch videos on YouTube. There's tons of videos out there that go over character builds. And I can recommend Stovov. He's got a very good YouTube channel. I'm going to put that in the description at the end of the video. But if you get stuck on a certain build or you're kind of unsure how to build a character, he's done almost every class combination out there. So if you're looking for help with class features and specific subtypes and archetypes for the DnD5e rule set, I recommend his channel. I tried to do that before, and I've done it with Rob 2e. I've made several videos about character builds, but they really don't always appeal to you, especially if you're not building that type of character. However, the main thing I want to drive home here in this particular video is to actually take your character, go that extra mile, put in a little extra work, and make your character more unique and not as cliche. Now, obviously, if you're doing a one-shot, you probably don't need to go to this extreme. This would be more for like a long-term character in a campaign, that sort of thing. If you're going to do a one-shot, most of the stuff is probably not necessary, although you do want a little bit of a backstory, and then also the details for the mechanics part of the game. But in this case, we're not only going to do mechanics, we're also going to be talking about the backstory, all the notes, those sort of things. So that's a really important thing. So your resources can also be tokens, you know, and images for your characters. You got your online tools that we talked to where you can use D&D Beyond and that sort of thing to build characters. Again, you want to communicate your character's place in the world, the interconnected backstories, if any, with other players. And the GM can, and your fellow players can kind of help you decide like the best approach to that. So when you do it as a team, it kind of builds as a team. So that's a good thing. It's okay to have someone that's kind of diametrically opposed to the group. So there's always at least one person that's always out there that wants to be the lone wolf or the thief or the bad guy or whatever. But generally speaking, you want to have a pretty cohesive group. So you're going to build your character, we'll fill out the character sheet, add the details, your equipment, and then your documentation. So in Fantasy Grounds, you can back up your character. We'll go over that. You want to journal as best you can, so you have a notes section on your character sheet where you can write notes. You can also, if the GM has this active or if you're part of his campaign, if you open up the right-hand side under Player for Notes, you're able to create your own notes here. So there's ways that you can journal some things. And the main things that I would, besides the campaign notes, is anything that touches on my backstory or something to do with related to my character specifically. I usually try to chronicle those. So that way, later on, as I level up or as things change in the campaign, I can remind the GM, hey, do you remember that time? You know, that sort of thing. Because sometimes the GM will forget what some of the story arcs that they've provided for you, and then they don't develop them, and then you're wondering what the heck's going on. We did all this work for nothing, you know. So it helps, it pays to back that up in the journal. So we're going to build a character. I already kind of have the build in mind. I already got all the details here. So this will help streamline the process. So it won't take forever to build a character necessarily. I'm not going to use the character wizard today because it is still kind of messed up a little bit. And I want to ensure that you can build this with the old drag and drop manual method, which is a lot more accurate and you have a lot more control over it. And it also allows you to customize it more. So that's why I'm going to be doing that. Eventually, Smiteworks will be working on the character wizard again to improve it, to get it all set nice and working better. Right now I think it's on lockdown, so we'll see what happens with that. So the next step here is I'm going to take you out of Fantasy Grounds and we're going to go to Canva and some of the programs that I'm using to create content. So this is the this is GIMP, free photo editing software. And I'm going to go to a program or an app that I downloaded that's part of this. It's like a plugin, and it's the batch manipulation. So there's batch image manipulation. So I'm going to go to that. And then what I'm going to do is add the folders that I want to use for converting into WebP format. The reason I'm doing this is to have more or less practice doing this, and also to make it so that the images and the assets and the tokens are not huge, or they're not taking up so much space. So the sooner you adopt this practice and make it kind of your everyday thing that you do when you create content, the easier this is going to be. So I'm going to take and add folders to this, or I can add individual files. It just depends on how you want to do it. But I'm going to go ahead and navigate to where I have this stuff. So on my storage drive, I have a downloads folder. And then what I want to do is look for my Elven character build. So here's my elves_PC folder. And then these two folders are the asset folders that I want to add. Now these have PNG files in them right now. So I'm going to hit this, add, and that's going to add all the files that I have in there. And I see there's already a problem here, but I can fix that later. And then I'm going to keep the folder hierarchy. And then I'm going to navigate and tell it where I want it to save, because I did this before and it kind of messed me up because I wasn't paying attention. And then I'm going to make a new folder, or just dump it in this same folder but not in the subfolders. And I'm going to hit OK. And once I do that, I'm going to add the batch manipulation set. So this is going to be, I'm not going to resize it, but what I'm going to do is just change the compression and the format. So right now it's set at JPEG for a default, but I'm going to go to WebP, and then I'm going to set the image quality to 75. So this is something that you'll have to get used to eventually. I leave the alpha quality at 100, that's the transparency part, and then I'm going to hit OK. And then once I do that, I'm going to hit apply. And it's going to go through and convert all those images from PNG format into the WebP format. And the reason we're doing this is to cut down on file size and for some consistency, those sort of things. And the reason we worry about file size is because if you're going to share any assets across the network, this will help speed that up a little and keep your campaign resources down to a minimum. So this is basically, I just converted them, and I want to show you the difference between not converting them and having those converted for this particular rule set. So I want to go ahead and close this, and I'm going to minimize Fantasy Grounds and minimize my browser, and then go to the assets here. And as you can see, I have the WebP versions, and then I have PNG files. So what I'm going to do is separate these out. So I'm going to, just for the sake of argument here, so I'm going to say PNG, and then the next one, I'm just going to make a new folder for WebM or WebP. Okay, so this is the PNG file folder. So I'm going to take all those, drag those in here, and this is supposed to be token 2. So I need to fix that. This is the one that had the bogus label, so I'll fix that later. But here's the PNG. So those are all the PNG files, and then here are all of the WebP files. So when I highlight over this thing is about 467 kilobytes without compression. These are files that aren't very big. They're only like 256 by 256, something like that. And then this one here is another one that this is 54 kilobytes. So that's the difference between these. So we have portraits, and then we have tokens here. So this is the actual folder that I'm going to be using, and I want to rename this one because I messed this one up. So I want this to be 02, not 1. There we go. So what we have here is a token and a portrait. So the portraits, they need to be square, and then these tokens, they can be square or round, but I usually keep them round for the sake of the map, so they kind of show up better. And they also have a border here, so that's the other thing. So this is just one of the steps that you would go through to creating your own character. So I generated these images, I cut them down, I put these rings around them. As a matter of fact, I'll bring up my work folder here. So this is just the image size that is recommended for WebP, for images, player maps, tokens. So the quality is at 75%. And then it tells you a rough idea of what size it should be. So these ones are 256 by 256. And then these are all the development guides for other things that have to do with creating these images for Fantasy Grounds. So what I did is, after I generated the files, I put those in Canva, and then I made 4 separate images so that these can be used in the game. And then I use a transparency when I exported these, so I don't get this white part around here. And this supports an export of WebP, so it's not going, or PNG, so that's why I had to export them as convert them as a different format. Now, when they get this ability to do WebP, that'll be very helpful. That'll take one step out. But when I go to the downloads thing, at one time, let's see, yeah, it doesn't give me WebP. I get JPEG and GIF, but I don't get any of the other options. So that's one thing about using a program like Canva. It's not really a photo editing program. So GIMP and Adobe and those will have that ability. So if you do it in there, it's probably going to be a little easier on you. But I use this to kind of arrange and organize things. I kind of like the way this works out. And then when I go back to my home folder here, and I'm going to click on this, these are the original images that I took those from. So these were the generated, these are actually AI images. And then I took those and I added this bow in the background because it's really hard to get it to train it to do that. So I added that in the background, and then I re-rendered these. And now these are going to be the artwork for the actual game. So now I'm going to go back into the folder that I was working in. And those are the assets for this. So I'm going to actually delete the PNG file, so I don't need those anymore. And then I have the artwork, which is those 4 images, and I have those labeled here. So I'm going to get rid of the PNG assets and just leave the artwork here. So these are going to be handouts. You don't necessarily have to have these, but this might be good for the GM to have to present the characters to one another, so you can kind of get an idea of who they're dealing with. So these are going to go to Thaliara, or Thaliara, I can't remember her name, but anyway, she's going to be the character that we're going to build. So I'm going to actually go to this area. I'm going to copy these assets, and then I'm going to go into Fantasy Grounds, and I'm going to put these in the appropriate area. So what you want to do is go to the campaign settings, and then go to images, and you can see this is where they're going to be added. So I want to create a group. So I'm going to call this, I'm going to add the category or group, and then it's going to say group 1. So I'm going to go ahead and take this and back this up, and I'm going to just call this Elven PCs, because I'm going to build other ones. So this whole campaign is just going to be dedicated to NPCs and PCs that are elves. And I'm going to build another campaign for dwarves and that sort of thing. That way I can make token packs and characters and all kinds of stuff that's related to a specific class or a specific race. So this is just the Elven PCs area. And now I want to go to assets. And in the assets area, when I'm in this area, I want to go ahead and hit the refresh. And what it's going to do is it's going to create a folder, provided I have this set up right. And I don't have it set up just yet. So I'm going to go to folder. Here's the images. I'm going to paste those 2 folders that I had in the other directory. So this one, these game assets are going to be going into different places. So these 2 portraits are going to go in the portrait subfolder. So I'm going to cut these out of here and go to images. And then what I want to do is in Fantasy Grounds, I want to click on portraits, and then I'm going to refresh this and then click on folder. And now I have a top level portrait folder that it's taken me to. So I don't want that. I actually want a subfolder in the campaign itself. So I'll go ahead and just go to images, go to folder, and then in the campaign folder where it says this, where it says images, I'm going to make another subfolder, and this is going to be portraits. So normally your portraits are stored at the top level. But in this case, since it's going to be campaign specific, I'm going to make this little folder here, call it portraits, and put the portrait photos in there. And then from this area, under images, I also have this art, so I'll leave that there because that'll be added into the campaign. And then these are the actual tokens. So I want to take these 2 tokens. What happened here? That looks goofy. That did not come out right. How weird is that? Let's see what it looks like in the Photoshop. Yeah, that's right. It just looks weird with the transparency isn't there. Okay, whatever. So the preview image looks wacky. So anyways, I'm going to take this and take these 2, and I'm going to cut those. And then I'm going to go back to images and back to the campaign folder. Now I want to make another folder. This will be tokens. So I'm going to make another subfolder, tokens. Now these exist in the top level data folder if you already have content and such, but I'm going to put these specifically in these folders for the sake of the campaign. And then once I do this the first time, I don't have to create these again. So I have all that stuff set up. Let me check the images. That is now empty, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And then here's the, I don't know why I said wolf art, but this is going to be elf art. And then let me look at the other things. I want to make sure I didn't screw that up. Okay, so once I've done with that, then I go ahead and hit this refresh. It's going to sort through all the stuff that are changes that I made. And now when I click on the campaign folder, I have the artwork here. So these would be added to the campaign, so I can drag them from here, or I can import them individually from down here in the images area, or I can create from campaign assets, but I'm just going to drag these over. It's only 2. And then I have more in the future that I'm going to actually bring over. So these are just a handout. So if I wanted to show one of the players to the group or something, I can share this image. So that's what those are for. Then when you go to portraits, and you actually go to build your character, I'm going to pick one of those portraits. So if I come in here and I go to, let me see, I got to find the portraits. See if I did this right. So I'm going to go to folder. Yeah, there's portraits there. So I wanted to see if I have my campaign portraits. So I'm going to go to assets and make sure that I have them in the correct folder. So then I go to the folder itself, the subfolder for the game, and I don't want to be in portraits, I want to be in images, just so I can get to it quicker. Okay, so here's elf art. Yeah, so here's the portraits, they're in here. So let's see what we got. So once I do that, and I hit this refresh, I should have a campaign image folder for that. It looks like it didn't save in there though for some reason, so I'll see if I have a subfolder. So there should be one. Yeah, here it is. So portraits. But I see what's going on here. So this is, it's throwing it off. So I will have to put those in the top level. But your portraits have to be stored in the portraits folder. I guess they don't. It doesn't accept the subfolder in this case. So what I'm going to do is go back into the assets, and it's important to get these in the right folders, because this is where it can get confusing. So I'm going to go to here, which is the main portrait area, and then go to Fantasy Ground. So this is the top level, and then in the campaigns folder, this is where I actually put them. So I'm just going to take this out, cut it, and then I'm going to go back into this folder, the top level, and I have one called custom made portraits. So I'll put them in here, and then I'm going to paste it, and what I'm going to do is put elf portraits here so I can separate it out. That way it's, you know, separate. It's not part of this other campaign. So now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and kind of refresh the assets so it doesn't confuse you, and then come back in here and look for my custom, and there should be another bag in here. Yeah, so here's the elf portraits. Yeah, so here's the portraits. So when the portrait is selected, this becomes your default token if you don't supply one. So the player and the GM can elect to give you a top-down token if you want, or in this case, I'm going to use one of our pogs. So if I go into the assets again, this time tokens, in the campaign folder, this is the rounded one with the border. So you have a portrait and a token. So they are separate even though it's the same image. This one's square and this one's round. So that's that. So that's just the artwork. Now, if you want to build multiple ones of such, you don't go for it. But I'm just doing this just to show you the process and how that could work. So that is basically the 3 different things. So you have artwork, you have your portrait, and you have tokens. Tokens cannot be assigned by players. I mean, they could pick them, but they cannot add them to their character sheet. The players have to do that. Portraits can be selected by players, and that becomes your default token. But if you want a separate token that's like one of the fancy 3-dimensional ones, or you want a different shape or something, then the GM has to do that for you. And that has to do with cutting down the memory between the client and the host. So this is part of that. Now what I'm going to start doing is build the character. So when you're doing this, you want to make sure you have all your sources open, or selected, or if you're the GM, you have to share the sources with the players if you haven't already. Usually by default, the player character books are already shared. So I'm going to take this and open up the modules area. And as you can see, I got some of this Rob 2e effects coding for the automation. I got the Sword Coast Adventures Guide. I got the DM's Guide to the Monster Manual for reference. Player's Handbook. Got the Adventures Guide, Player's Edition, and I have all the player books, or most of them, loaded for character creation. Now, these are all, you know, Wizards of the Coast official content. I don't have Kobold Press and all those other groups here, but I have a bunch of that I could use if I wanted to. So these are just the basic books that you would have for players when you first start out. Generally speaking, I only bring 1 or 2 people on at a time. Try not to get everyone at once, because when that very initial part, when you share all these books, it can really lag out and disconnect people. So I generally try to go with 1 or 2 people at a time for a full character build. That way it doesn't flood the bandwidth. You can do 5 people at once. I've done it many times with character creation classes, but it can get very cumbersome, and then it gets confusing because you got 5 people asking you questions at once. So it's generally better if you just do 1 or 2 people at a time. That's my suggestion, maybe 3. But after that, it starts to get a little chaotic, unless your players are very familiar with the process and they don't really need your help. So that's when and sometimes they can help other players while you're doing stuff. So it just depends on what your needs are. But now I have all these available to me, so now I'm going to start building your character. So I do have some extensions loaded. I don't recommend them straight away if you're not used to Fantasy Grounds. However, if you are used to Fantasy Grounds and you understand how the base program works, and you have things in your inventory or in your library that you want to use, you know, those sort of things, you know, so be it. I'm not against it. I just think that it's better if you start off with the fresh slate and you're not creating a character and not understanding the changes that are being made and that sort of thing. And you also have the ability to reach out and ask people for help. There are videos, all kinds of stuff, lots of resources out there to teach you and give you the best practices and that sort of thing. Now, the build that I'm going to create now may not be your favorite. This is going to be a female Elven Ranger, Arcane Archer type, and she's going to have some a kind of an extensive background, that sort of thing. So if you're not interested in this part of the video, I apologize, but this is just a way to show how the process is. And this also gives people some incentive and maybe some inspiration to kind of put a little bit more work and effort into their characters. So I'm not going to mess with the ability scores at this time, because I'm just going to hand choose them after the fact. So I'm going to leave those. But generally, the way this was built is we use this was the standard array, so 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8. I'm going to leave this alone because I'm going to actually go back after the fact and adjust them to match this here on this particular sheet here. So this is all my build notes here. So this is what I was saying earlier. This is plan your build, did the research and all that sort of thing, and created the background and talked to my game master and my players, and then started building a character. So this is going to be, let's see, this is Thaliara Featherquill, Wood Elf, Ranger, level 4. It's got a noble background, neutral good, using the point buy. She does have Natural Explorer Forest. Her fighting style will be archery. She's going to have leather armor, spear, dagger. She has a +1 elven bow, which she got recently. She has a signet ring to kind of signify her belonging to an elven noble house at one point. She has a scroll of pedigree, 50 gold, adventurers kit, you know, so you get the idea. So this is already kind of planned out. So all I have to do is make the choices, drag and drop the correct stuff over, you know, that sort of thing. So that makes this process a little bit faster. So let me quit yapping, and I'm going to go to background. That's the second thing you do. So you start with ability scores first. And the acronym that we use is ABRC, which is abilities, background, race, class. So this pertains to building the character manually with the drag and drop method. if you're going to do the character wizard, you can kind of do it in different order. But in this case, I'm going to drag over the background. Like I said, I'll do the abilities last only because I'm just going to manually adjust everything. So I'm going to take and make some changes. So the background is a noble. So she has a noble background, but she doesn't act like one. But she does have assets to her advantage if she needs to. So what I'm going to do is pull up the backgrounds under the character creation area. And I'm going to look for noble and drag and drop it over onto the character sheet. So if you have access to this, you should see this list of backgrounds. And I take this noble, this little brick or square here, drag and drop it on here. And in the chat window, it shows you what was added. So you get history and persuasion. So, and then you get a language of your choice. You get a retainer and position of privilege. So these are just different role-playing features that you get. So those are added as you build. So if I go to the skills, these are already added. And if I go to the abilities, these features are already added. So we also get to gain a gaming set. So she probably plays dragon chess. We'll get into that later. But that's just some of the things that were added. So now that that's done, now we're going to move on to race. So we're going to pick elf. So we're going to go to races. And then we're going to pick elf. And then it will ask us, a pop-up will come up if we want to build a specific race. So I'm just going to pick the elf from the player's handbook. You got 3 or 4 different copies from different books. It doesn't really matter which one you pick, but I always choose the one from the player's handbook usually. Once I open that up, now it's going to give me my options. So I'm going to pick wood elf. That's her main sub-race. We'll go ahead and hit that. And it does make adjustments. So it looks like she got +2 on dex and +1 on wisdom. But I'm not going to worry about it. Like I said, I'm going to adjust those manually later. So we'll go ahead and close that. And over here, it added the traits. It added the elf weapon training, so she's able to at least be proficient with a longbow, short sword, and long sword. And then she gets Mask of the Wild, which is a way that she kind of blends in with the forest and the wilderness, especially when it's raining or it's foggy out. It gives her kind of advantage on blending in with the background. So that's kind of cool. And now what we're going to do is pick the class and level. So normally you can just drag that over to this class and level area. So if I pull up classes and take and drag over the ranger, it will pop up and ask me, you know, what the particulars of the ranger. But normally what I'll do, especially if I plan on leveling up, which I am, I'll leave this part open and I'll drag it to this part instead of just to the character sheet. That way I can see what's going on. So this is just a little magnifying glass next to the class and level. So take that, drag Ranger over, and drop it. And now I get my choices. So this is where the drag and drop method gets kind of sticky. So you want to make sure that you're not doubling up on your particular skills. So if you click on the skills tab before you choose, because you get 3 of them here, we already have history, we have perception for being an elf, and we have persuasion. So those 2 were from the background. The perception was from the actual elf. And now we're going to get 3 choices to be proficient in for the actual character build for the class. So I think I'm going to do nature, which kind of makes sense, stealth, which helps, and probably survival or animal handling. I think survival is going to be more helpful to her in this case, as opposed to animal handling. I was thinking about animal handling, but she doesn't really ride horses. She doesn't have any mounts. I mean, nature kind of covers most of the things related to animals, so I don't think I need that one. So I'll go ahead and hit OK, and that will add those automatically. Now you have a tool proficiency that comes up, and that would be, in this case, it's one type of gaming set. So I can add that as I need to, and then there's a language choice, which I'll change later, which says one of your choice, so I might as well do it now. So I'm going to give her Sylvan, which is kind of the root language for the Fae, elves, fairies, all that sort of thing. So I'll go ahead and change that. And then for favorite enemy, my notes said beast, but I'm going to actually say humanoids. And it's going to be humans and probably orcs or something like that. Goblins, probably. You get to pick two. So when you pick humanoid, it tells you that you can pick a couple. So such as gnolls and orcs as favorite enemies. So actually, I'm going to say orcs and goblins, not humans. Orcs, goblins. So these are my favorite enemies. And then over here for Natural Explorer, I'm going to put a note in here for Forest because that's basically where she hangs. These two are role-playing things to do with her noble background. Elf weapon training, we already know about that. So she's already proficient with all martial weapons and up to medium armor, so I don't need to add or change anything there. But that gives her additional proficiencies if she was like a cleric or a wizard that normally doesn't get that. She's got Mask of the Wild, Trance, so these are her elven stuff. And then she gets light armor, medium armor, shields, simple and martial weapons, which is pretty much everything. And then that's all I need to worry about right now. So that's her favorite enemies is going to be orcs and goblins. So I just notated it there so I can have good reference and the GM can see that. So these are some of the changes that you have to do manually that are not automatically updated when you create a character with Fantasy Grounds. So it can vary from rule set to rule set, but this is the DnD5e rule set, so you know that may be different in Pathfinder or one of the other fantasy-based rule sets. But in this case, you know, not everything's automated. Probably about 80%, and the rest you got to kind of customize on your own. So I did say we had a tool proficiency, so I'm going to go ahead and take this and bring that over and go to the skills area. I'm going to open up this by clicking on Add Item. Click the little asterisk here. And I'm going to call this Gaming Set, and then I'm going to call it this Dragon Chest is what it's going to be. I don't know if she's necessarily going to lug a gaming set around necessarily, but she knows how to play. So if anyone challenges her to a game of Dragon Chess, she's got it. She's got it covered. So there's that. And let's go ahead and go back to the Actions tab. So some of these things are being added as I build. So we have Mask of the Wild, Natural Explorer. These sort of things are being added as I build. One of them is added by this, which is the Fantasy Grounds added. And then the other is being added by an extension by Mad Nomad's Automatic Actions, and it's pulling from Rob 2E's effects coding. So as I'm building the character, most, if not all, of the automation is being added as I go, which is really handy. So what I'm going to do now is level up to level 4. So I'm going to take my time. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up. And here's the class and level again. So you could drag over the ranger again, but it's really not necessary once you've done it at first level. Now, one of the things you can do as a game master at this point is I can make a backup before I level up. This is an important step. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the build, and before I level up, I'm going to make a copy because that's really important if you want to preserve the character in its pristine state before you level up. The other thing is on your skills, if you do not have at least 4 skills or more on your first level go around, you're likely doubled up somewhere, so you want to check that because it's easy to double up on a background skill, a racial skill, and then a class skill. Now, not too many races give out skills, but elves do. Noble background gave me 2 skills, and then I got 3 from ranger. So I have about 6 of them right now. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 skills right now. So if you doubled up on something, you're not going to know that. So just be careful when you're building. When you drag those over, check your skills area, make sure you have it doubled up and that you don't choose one that you already have. That's all it's saying. You don't get a double proficiency or anything like that. That doesn't stack. So just to let you know. So there's all that stuff. I think the next step is I'm going to give her some inventory. Kind of already have some picked out here. Some of these are unique, but I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop a convenience thing here, and I want to make sure I have it loaded. So I'm going to go to modules, background and class equipment bundles. So what these are is it's a collection of equipment that's put into a kind of like a treasure type chest thing where it's actually, these are parcels. And these are built for convenience by the community. This is an idea I had with Rob, and he went ahead and made this module for it. This is community made. This is not built into Fantasy Grounds. Although if you pick a background equipment item, you'll get a lot of the stuff with it. But in this case, I'm going to pick the background for a noble for this character because she has a noble background. So I'm just going to drag and drop that over, and it automatically adds any of the content and the gold. And what it looks like is this. So it's just an equipment bundle that's kind of made into a treasure bundle, and it has all of the background equipment and then the 25 starting gold. So that's the convenience of it. And now I'm going to come over and scroll down, go to the next page, and this is the starting equipment list A for a ranger. So that'll give me most of the gear that I want, and I'm going to do some swapping out after the fact, but go ahead and drag and drop that over, and that adds all the other equipment. So this is the stuff that you get for being a ranger. So what I'm going to do now is take a look at my list here. So the quiver's fine, rations are fine, scale mail armor is going to go away because we're going to actually have probably studded leather. So if I come over to items, and provided your GM is going to allow you to pick from here, I'm going to go with leather armor, and I want to here's glamored, infused. No, I want the studded leather. Here's some leather boots. I'll give her those. Yeah, studded leather. So that's her armor class instead of scale. And then she's not going to have a regular longbow. It's going to actually have a magic +1. So I'm going to grab that. So let's go longbow +1. So drag and drop that over here, and it's equipped, so it will show up here in your inventory as a +1. So I'm going to have 20 arrows. They're going to be regular arrows. They're not magical. And then change this to two-handed because you have to use 2 hands to use a longbow. So she has a short sword, which I'm going to change that to a dagger and probably a scimitar. So I don't want the short blade. So let's see what we got in the inventory. Yeah, so she has 2 short blades here. I'm just going to give her a scimitar and a dagger. So probably doesn't need the dagger, but just in case for emergencies, or you might have it hidden in her boot somewhere in case she gets captured. So here's a scimitar, so drag that over, and then a dagger. So I don't think she's only getting that +1 from her heritage, and that's part of her noble background. It's kind of like an inheritance. And then her boots are probably just more, aesthetics, not really going to do anything for her. She has a purse where coins are in that, a quiver to hold the arrows. She's got some rations. She's got an empty backpack, so let's fill that up. So I delete all the word empty, including the space after that. And we're going to take and just kind of put different equipment items in different locations. So for instance, the torches, I'm just going to type the letter B, and that's going to go in the backpack. The arrows are going to go in the quiver, so just start off with a Q. And as you do this, it's going to add the stuff in here. So let me fix that quiver. There we go. It's got to be spelled the way the container is. And let's see. So pitons, I don't know if she has a pouch. She has a purse. We'll put those in the backpack. And then we'll just say the rope is kind of roped around the backpack. So there's a scroll of pedigree. That'll go in the backpack. Signet ring, probably the purse. So we'll put that in there. Tinderbox, backpack. Water skin, we'll just say that's attached to the backpack. Crowbar will also be in the backpack, and the hammer. And anything else? Let's see. Rations, the food, will go back there. Scimitar, studded leather, unarmed strike. So the unarmed strike is just going to create a weapon entry so that you're able to use that. So if I go to the actions tab, this is what it's starting to shape up like. So with that, I have torches and the crowbar here under these items that I can use. And then for this stuff here, like I have one dagger, and then I have the 20 arrows, scimitar, and then I have the unarmed strike. So the longbow is already set to two-handed, so that's correct. Now these are actions that were added from the extension and from Rob2E's effects coding. These are the kind of the standard actions here. Then you have the elves kind of related stuff. And then you have the favorite enemy, Mask of the Wild, Natural Explorer. So what I'm going to do is take the Mask of the Wild and let me see if it's already on here. Yeah, so this is under elf. So yeah, I'm going to leave those two because Fey Ancestry and Mask of the Wild are related to that. But when you go to the Ranger stuff, I think Mask of the Wild is probably unnecessary at this point, and I already have favorite enemy, so I don't need to do that. So I'll just get rid of that whole section. So I have the elf features here and the ranger features. So favorite enemy, natural explorer, and then I was going to put a note here. So we had goblins and orcs, I believe, is humanoids is what we chose. So just put a note there. And then natural explorer is going to be forest. So that's basically taking that information from your background and your features and manually transferring the notes on there. It doesn't do anything mechanically, but it gives you that the notation and reminder type thing. The ancestry is on there. So at this point, you could add this character to the combat tracker to test it out. But I still want to level it up. But there's a couple things you can do to kind of help yourself. So that's pretty thorough. I got to do the background and such. So she was neutral good. And it's female. And I think in human years, she probably looks like she's probably like 25 or something, 26. I'll say 25, or appearance anyways. She's probably 5'3" at the most, and probably 128 pounds soaking wet. So that's basically just a manual process. I haven't put the deity in here, because I don't know if she actually, maybe Sylvanas, I'll just put that on there just because I know the name. But I might change that later. So she Rever Sylvanas, kind of a nature deity. Now these are personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws. You can pull those off the background, but I actually made up some here. I'm going to unlock my notes here. So here's the backstory. So personality traits is that she... Let's see, did I unlock that? No. Okay, so what I'm going to do is put this here for her personality traits. So she's serious. She has a deep respect for the traditions of nature, that sort of thing. So I'll put that on here. And what else do we got? Oops, do that. So though noble born, she values skill and wisdom over titles and lineage. So she doesn't act like a brat, you know. She's pretty level-headed. And let's see. So that's that. Allies and organizations. So Forest allies include fae, creatures, woodland spirits, and even a reclusive druid circle. She maintains a respectful distance from her noble family, but can call on their resources when absolutely necessary. So I'm going to put that in her background. So these are things I wrote ahead of time. And that's why it's nice to have this stuff prepared for your game master before you even get to the build process. It's kind of hard to make it up on the spot sometimes. So, and now here's the background. So there's quite a bit of stuff here. So I'm just going to copy and paste this and put this here, and then just paste it in. It's a little extensive, but you know, this is a type of organization and notes that you might want to include for your character to make it a little bit more complete. You know, you're going that extra mile to make this thing more efficient. So she's 4th level, Arcane Archer. Okay, so now that we have all this stuff pretty much allocated and set up, let's see, she's got leather armor, +1 elven bow. She carries a spear and a dagger as backup weapons. So we changed that up a little bit. So what I will do is I'll put spear on her inventory, and then, you know, I won't equip it, essentially. So spear, so she might be carrying it on her back or something, kind of stowed away. So we'll just bring over the spear. But the thing about it is that she won't have it equipped. So if I go to her inventory, the spear is here, it's equipped, so I'm just going to have it set as carried. And that way, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be on here, but it's just notated that she has it stowed away. So we can put, you know, a little note on there if we want. And normally she would use it two-handed anyway, so we'll change this to two-handed. All right, so that's that. And then, so we're kind of just putting the final touches on it. Once you've done that, and you've got all your notes and background and pretty much most of it done, then you can go ahead and start, you know, making a backup for it. But I want to finish up her background. So here's her noble background and her notes here. So ideals. So let's take a look at her ideals here. So respect, responsibility, I think that is almost her. Independence, I must prove I can handle myself without, you know, people telling me how to do it. Family runs thicker than water. Noble obligations to my duty to protect and care for the people beneath me for good. Yeah, I kind of think that fits her. It's because it's a noble obligation. And then for bonds, I'll face any challenge to win the approval of my family. I don't think that's her. My house alliance with other noble families must be sustained at all costs. No, nothing is more important than the other members of my family. I am in love with the heir of a family that despises my family. My loyalty to my sovereign is unwavering. The common folk must see me as a hero of the people. I think that's kind of more her. She kind of wants that heroic look. Let's see. I secretly believe that everyone is beneath me. I hide a scandalous secret. I often hear veiled insults. Every word is addressed to me. I have an insatiable desire for carnal pleasures. I don't think that's her. In fact, the world does revolve around me. By my words and actions, I often bring shame to my family. You know, that could be a thing. But I secretly believe that everyone's beneath me. I hide a truly scandalous secret that could ruin my family forever. I think that's cool. So that kind of fits her backstory a little bit. I can change those too. These are just suggestions. All right, so once you have that done, then what you want to do, if you can, if your GM allows it, is you want to make a copy. Very simple. Once that character is saved, you just left click and drag, and you have another instance of it. There's no artwork, but that's fine. So this would be a copy of this for level 1, and then what you could do is put level 1 for just so you can keep track of it. And what that'll do is it will keep this character the same, and then when you go to level up, you'll have a backup in case something goes wrong or you pick the wrong thing or whatever. Because in this mode, when you're building characters, you can't really back up. You can't go back. So once you pick noble and elf and all that stuff, it's hard to erase it and start over. So what you want to do is, you know, these are adding as they go. So the trick with the manual build that I'm doing now is to kind of know what you want and to have everything ready. It really helps a lot. When you're using the character wizard, you don't have to be as organized normally, and you can go back and make all the changes, and then the changes are written at the very end, whereas this one's writing the changes as it goes. So that's one drawback of doing it this way, besides the potential to double up on skills. So now what I'm going to do is level up. So leveling up with the 5th edition rule set is fairly straightforward. It's simple. You want to make sure you have your books available to you. They need to be open or accessed or whatever. You need to have those loaded before you level up. And then you will take and open up the class and level. Take the little link here on the far right, what's underneath this plus button, and just left click and drag and drop, and that'll actually add another layer or another level. So that's level 2. Now we're going to go up to level 3. So click there, and this is where I get my archetype. So what we're going to do is some kind of, you know, kind of like an Arcane Archer. I kind of don't know if that is actually a good fit. So what I'm going to do is maybe make her a monster slayer or something like that. I think that would be cool. Or perhaps a Fey Wanderer, whatever you think is appropriate. But I kind of like the idea of, yeah, so here's Deadly Strikes. Maybe even the Beastmaster, because that's probably the worst build there is, but this will give her animal companion that I kind of hinted at. Yeah, I'll just make her a Beastmaster, whatever. And she's also like a Fletcher, kind of. She like collects the stuff to get her own arrows made. So I'll just make her a Beastmaster. It's probably, or a Hunter is probably even better. Let's see. The Hunter gives you Hunter's Prey, defensive tactics. Kind of don't like that. Let's see. What's this one? Bestial Fury. Yeah, see, none of these are really speaking to me, but Monster Slayer would give her probably the most cool stuff. Hunter Sense, Slayer's Prey. Yeah, I'll just do that. Monster Hunter it is. So that'll be your archetype. Not Arcane Archer. That's a whole different class. So there we go. This is her build for this character. Now at 3rd level, she got her archetype. So it will add new things here. So I don't know why it added this anti-paladin thing, which doesn't make any sense. But this is fighting style protection. But she doesn't need that. So I'll go ahead and edit that off. And then take that off. Fantasy Grounds Unity added. So she's going to have archery, so we don't need to have 50 million things there. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to take this off because we already have it in this fighter area. So go ahead and take that out. Let's see. Defense. Nope, she doesn't need that. She doesn't need that or that. And what we'll do is when we're done, we'll drag this up to, or this will be her ranger area here. So she's not necessarily a fighter, but that's her fighting style. So we'll change that to ranger because she's not a ranger, or not a fighter, she's a ranger. And then anything in there would be wisdom based, I guess. No, I have to leave that at base. There we go. Okay, so there's ranger and favorite enemy. So yeah, we got all the ranger stuff together. And I'm going to just delete these. Okay, so these are basically what we're left with. So she's got her fighting style, natural explorer, primeval awareness, and favorite enemy. And then the items, the elf stuff, the dodge, help, hide, ready. So all those are set. Now what we're going to do is level up to level 4. And what will happen is we're going to add either a feat or we're going to increase her ability scores. So I want to take my show notes and just manually adjust her abilities because I didn't want to roll and do all that stuff during the show. So She has a 10 strength. That sounds really cheesy. But anyways, 17 for that. Con is, you know, I think I'm going to take the con and put that into strength. That'll be 14. And then her charisma is going to be 12. So I'm manually going to take these. So I'm going to give her a 15 instead of a 16 for wisdom. Intelligence is probably going to be like 12. Her con will be 13. And that way I kind of took some of them out of these other ones and put them in other places. So that's just me kind of cheating, but that's how I think this looks pretty fair overall for 4th level, or when she gets 4th level. Now, I'm not going to, if I pick the, you know, the ability score increase, I'm not going to change any of the abilities. If I'm going to do a feat, I'm going to definitely take advantage of that. So I think I will do a feat just because. So I'll go ahead and drag this over. And it automatically updates most everything else. I don't really need to change anything or add anything. But I do want to add the feat. So if I go over to feats and take a look at those under the character options, there was, I think it's sharpshooter or something that I wanted to give her. Something really kind of overpowered here. Let's see. Yeah, sharpshooter. So you get attack. A long range doesn't impose disadvantage. Your ranged weapons ignore 1/2 and 3/4 cover, which is really cool. So you're essentially raining your arrows down on people. And before you make an attack with a ranged weapon that you are proficient with, you can choose to take a -5 penalty. And if the attack hits, it does a +10 to the damage. Wow. Okay, so I think I'll take that. That looks really interesting. She is kind of a badass with the bow, so let's take and drag this up to feats. And let's see if anything was added here. So yeah, here's the sharpshooter thing was added. So these are all effects here, or at least notes. And then that's it for the build. So that's pretty much a done deal at 4th level. So if before I level up to level 5, I would probably make backups for every single level. I kind of skipped through that part, but as you level up, you're going to want to make backups for each level in case you need to go backwards, or if you want to play this character at different levels in different games. So you have kind of an option there. And then when you're done, when your GM is complete, or when you've created your own character and you want to send it forward, you want to go to your character selection area. And over here on the right, you can export your characters. So if you actually click the edit button, it adds this export character arrow. You click this down arrow, give it a good name. So this is a level 1 actually, this instance. Thaliara, and then I'm going to put _ Ranger, so I know what it is. And then when you do this, it'll keep all the data. It won't save the artwork, but it'll keep the data. And then you can send that to your GM or whoever, or you just kind of archive it if you want. So that's a full build on a character. So that's building the tokens, the art, everything. So this is her, so now I get out of the edit mode. So this is her complete build with all the actions and everything, all the automation up to the level 4. If the GM is around, he can put it on the combat tracker. Before you start playing, you can add things to your character that's going to kind of make things easier on you. So the crowbar we're going to leave alone, but the torches, we have 10 of them, and we can set that to once, which will keep track of how many you've used. If you want to track more things here, you're welcome to do that. I might put my water skin here and my rations, even though it doesn't do anything mechanically. So the water skin is just going to be for keeping track of my water consumption and my supplies. So I might put 1 right there for daily, and that's going to actually go to once because you only use to drink the water once unless you refill it. And then 10 for rations. That's just going to keep track of when I eat the food that I have on me And that doesn't include hunting and all that other stuff. You know, that can fluctuate. So I'll go ahead and change that to once. And crowbar is just an advantage thing to break things open. And these things don't need anything. So yeah, that's all that stuff there. And I'm going to actually give her 1 potion of healing. So I'm going to go over to items and go into healing as a search term. And here's potion of healing. Drag and drop that. It's here. I'm going to put it in my backpack. And if you have the automated thing on here, it will add it here. So it already automatically added it to my sheet here. Now that's if you have the extension and the modules loaded for it. If not, you can make your own potion of healing. It's not too bad. So if you wanted to make this your own healing potion, you can actually add your own effect here, and it's not too bad. You can just edit this stuff here, kind of see how it's set up, and do your own. So it's not too hard. And there's an effects wiki and all kinds of resources out there to show you how to do it. I don't want to spend the time right now, but if you're going to do that, there's a way to do it. So I'm going to set this to usage to 1, and then once for the actual daily use. And then last but not least, we got to pick a few spells. So she is 4th level. She gets 3 slots for 1st level. So what we're going to do is go to spells, and we're going to drop down. I'm going to use the 5e. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, no matter. Yeah, no problem, man. Yeah, this is just, you know, going over the stuff. And if you have a specific build that you want to create, then what you're going to do is just go to watch Stoveho's videos, and I'll put that in the link, where it has specific builds for every single character combination. This was just kind of an overall thing, and I wanted to show the work, the effort, you know, going the extra mile. A lot of this stuff may not be necessary. It might be over the top for you, but, you know, as long as you get access to this stuff, and your GM is cool with you, they'll work with you and teach you this stuff, but it's not something you're going to learn overnight for sure. Now I'm going to go to the spells, and in this case I'm going to pick Rob Tui's effects coding because I like the way they're set up better. You know, the ones from the player's handbook are fine, but these have a little bit more information on them, which I appreciate. And I'm going to select level 1 to filter that out, and then source is Ranger in this case. So going to go with Ranger, and that will, yeah, so here we go. So Ranger. All right, so these are all the 1st level spells. And I think what I'll do is probably Hunter's Mark, because that's very popular. So that'll be one of my spells. Cure Wounds, which is always a necessary evil there. And I get 1 more. What do you guys think? Fog Cloud, that's kind of useful. Animal Friendship might be a thing. Jump is useful. Speak with Animals is useful. So I'm kind of looking for a utility here, because I already have a cure, and I kind of have one that's for offense. So what do you guys think? I get, these are 1st level Rangers spells. So that would be something that you'll have to decide if you want to. Let's see. I don't need Detect Magic. Beast Bond, maybe. Maybe something to do with animals, or this Hail of Thorns is kind of interesting. Speak with Animals. Zephyr Strike is interesting. You move like the wind. You basically can move up really close until the spell ends. It doesn't provoke opportunity attacks, so if you have that and you're kind of ganged up on, this might actually help you get out of that situation. But once before the spell ends, you can give yourself advantage on 1 weapon attack, and you roll on your turn. The attack deals an extra 1d8 force damage. So whether you hit or miss, your walking speed increases by 30 feet. So you essentially get to move twice your movement rate. No, what is that? Opportunity attacks can be made against you, and you get advantage on your attack roll, plus an additional d8 force damage. You know what? I think that Zephyr Strike sounds pretty good. Hunter's Mark is helpful too, though. So I don't know if I want both of those, but definitely something cool. I like Fog Cloud because you can cast that and kind of provide cover for your group. 20-foot radius. It doesn't do a whole lot, but it obscures the area, so it makes it hard for archers and people just to come up to you and you know, thump on you or shoot you with a bow from a distance. I don't know. Kind of on the fence, but I think I'll do Zephyr Strike because I think that is a really cool kind of one-time effect. It does some pretty kick-ass stuff. So there we go. We got a Cure Wounds, Hunter's Mark, and Zephyr Strike. So there we go. There's our 3 spells that we get for being a ranger. So I'm going to close up pretty quick, but I wanted to show you the potion of healing. So we're done with the character, but I wanted to go over this one thing, even though I said I wasn't going to. So if you want to make a potion, let's say you didn't have this or something, you could do this. So you could take this section, this potion section, right-click, or add an action, and it's already in this group. But if you want to make a group, you would add it here on the right. And I'm down here in the mode of standard and group. So what I'm going to call this is we'll just say it's a minor healing potion. Let's do that. So we'll just call it that because I don't want to repeat the other one. Minor healing, we'll say salve or something. So this is a thing that you rub on your skin. So it's not as potent as a healing potion, but it does a little healing. So what we're going to do is right-click, go to add action, and in this case it's going to be the heal function. So you're going to add the healing, and it creates a new line, and I'm going to open this up. Now normally the potion does 2d4 plus 2, but this one's going to do 1d4. So I'm just going to drag a 4-sided die, and then I'm going to put 1 right here, and that's basically going to be the potion. And this, well, it's not really a potion, it's a thing that you rub on your skin. So it's a minor kind of thing that you're going to be adding to your character if you get hurt. And then what I'm going to do is change that to 1 in preparation mode, and then change this to once. So now when you use it, it'll disappear off your sheet. There you go. So I made a little healing salve that maybe someone made for him, or maybe she made it, who knows. But once you're done with all that stuff, you go to preparation, go to combat, and actions. And that's what you want your character sheet to look like. And to make life easier on you before you play, make sure that you put on your passive abilities. So in this case, this would be my Fey Ancestry. And if you have anything else, like for Sharpshooter, I think I will put this on. This is just a notation for the range thing. And then anything else that I might want. So Natural Explorer is just a note, so I'll do that. And then Primal Awareness, I think you have to use a spell slot. Yeah, you have to use one of your spell slots, so that doesn't go on. So those are your passive abilities, your elf abilities, and then Sharpshooter notes, and then there might be one other. No, that's pretty much it. So that's basically how you'd want your character to be when you're ready to play. And then take your initiative, drag and drop that down to the hotkey so that you don't have to come back to the sheet every time you roll initiative. And then for your skills tab, just take your top 2 skills. So I might take, let's see, survival, stealth, and maybe nature. Those are probably the ones I'm going to use the most. Okay, so top 2 or 3. And then this little down arrow, when it comes to passing your turn, you can take this arrow for next actor or turn complete, drag and drop this down here, and now you have pretty much all of the main stuff that you need, and then you're going to be on the Actions tab. So when you're playing, you have your sheet right up, butted up next to this area, and then you have everything's kind of expanded so you can see it. But let's just say that you get overwhelmed, you got too much crap on your sheet. You can actually collapse these sections here if you're not going to use them or you don't need them anymore. So you can kind of clean that up so you don't have such a big, long list to scroll through. So I might leave my my spells and my ranger stuff. But once you add your passive abilities, you generally don't need those activated. But anyway, so those are just ways to keep your sheet managed and not so overwhelming. And then you might take and so you got your this here, and then you have all these. Now, if you have some class features or things that you're kind of uncertain about, you can always take this Monster Slayer thing and drag that down here. So if you need to read about your features for your class, you could do that. So there's just different things that, you know, that you're going to have. So Monster Slayer magic. Okay, so I didn't add this. This is another thing I needed to add. So you get protection from evil and good, and it takes concentration. It just gives you a bonus spell. So I want to add that here. And this is my ranger spell. So that's something I forgot. Hunter's Sense is probably, let's see if that's even on here. Yeah, I need to add that too. So those are two things I didn't, that I forgot to add. So if I come over to the spells area, and I'm going to drag and drop to, or at least move this to class features, take the level off because these aren't leveled. Okay, so we got that. Defensive tactics, foe slayer. Yep, we did that. We did that. Natural explorer's already there. Hunter's defense. Yeah, I don't see anything on here in addition to, so I don't need to worry about that too much. But I am going to add the spell. So protection from good and evil. So I'll add that. So go to spells. And then go to here for spells. And unfilter so I can look for it. So these are a lot of steps that go into character creation. This is probably the most, I guess, in all of the gaming stuff for Fantasy Grounds, I think character creation is probably the most complex. Everything else is pretty easy. This is where things are kind of complex because it depends on the build. But see, now we have protection from good and evil, but I want to put it in my other area, the ranger area, because it's actually comes from that, and it's not a spell that I'm going to be casting per se the normal way. So this is that. So delete this. And then what we're going to do is change the ranger stuff. Probably, no, I didn't want to change it because of archery. So we'll leave that because there's no saving throw. I don't have to worry about it. And it basically gives me protection from evil at 3rd level. And the spell counts as a ranger spell for you, but it doesn't account. Oh, okay. So that does go there. Okay, so I'll just put that in. So it's a bonus spell, essentially. So I'll just go ahead and drag that back down there, remove this, so it just gives you another spell. Okay, cool. So that's that, and then Hunter's Sense is what? You can peer at a creature, discern the best way to hurt it. As an action, you choose, yep, so I want to look for that. So I'm just going to unfilter this whole thing and go to I'm going to go to Sense, I guess, or Hunter. Might be a better Hunter's Sense. There it is. So I want to drag that into here. And there we go. So there's, you get to use it once. All right, cool. So there we go. So that is a full build. So I did forget a couple things. So that's a full, complete character build. Everything from the token all the way down to all the little namby-pamby stuff, and then also the role-playing notes. So if you go to your notes tab here, there's all the role-play stuff. So she's got an interesting background. So she's her allies and affiliation view. So she was approached or was supposed to join the Emerald Enclave, but she finds them a tad bit too extreme. particularly due to their links with the Eldrith Veluthra, so that she doesn't really want to be a part of this extremist group. She was also invited to join the Harpers, but kind of put off because they're too secretive and disorganized in nature as far as she's concerned. For now, though, she prefers the independence of her forest life, focusing on protecting her homeland through bowmanship, diplomacy, or combat if the situation needs be. Among her adversaries stands a peculiar archer only known as the Green One, or to his allies, his name is Envier. Or Enevar. His relationship is complicated between the two of them. They got this complicated back and forth thing. So it blends in elements of competition, admiration, and an enigmatic sense of connection. Neither has either spoken face to face, and their interactions are limited to challenging and enthralling games of cat and mouse, target practice, and woodland chases. So they kind of go after each other. Hey, Dan, what's up? They kind of go after each other and, kind of attack each other, and they kind of like each other for some weird way. What she doesn't know, though, is that Enever, her mysterious archery rival, is actually a young adult green dragon in disguise. Enever, or Envy, as he's known amongst his own kind, is a creature of complex emotions and intentions. He holds a morbid fascination with Thaliara, both as a worthy adversary and as an intriguing elf who has managed to capture his attention in a way no one else has. So he's kind of like intrigued by her for some reason. But Thaliara's ultimate goal is to become an unparalleled master of archery, and she wants to basically ensure the safety of her forest home. While her feelings for Envy are complicated, she finds them to be the only challenge to her skills. It stirs something from within her, from an array of conflicting emotions that range from curiosity to rivalry, and perhaps something more. So she's kind of got this weird thing going on where she likes this guy, but she doesn't. And I don't think she'd ever, go after him romantically, but he does kind of make her think at night. And he's one of those entities that just bugs her, so she's constantly thinking about that goofball. And it looks like she's kind of not really naive, very self-disciplined. Her wisdom, intelligence make her a keen observer, and her surroundings very aware of its beauty and its lurking dangers. And she's embodied the essence of grace and majesty akin to the forest that she calls home. So she's got a pretty complex life. Like she was born into an elven nobility family with this like lush mythical woods, the Forgotten Realms, the High Forest. She was taught to honor the natural world and to master the arcane arts of archery. From a young age, her lineage endowed her with a blend of wisdom and martial skill, a legacy she carried forward with unwavering devotion. So she's kind of a cool character. And then for artwork, I'm going to pop that back up. So you could take this type of artwork, like this is the artwork for her, and could share this with your group. Yeah, so she has her bow with her. That's her magic +1 bow. And she's kind of pretty and she's kind of smart, and she's kind of a well-rounded individual. And she's kind of a cool character. So when you actually add these extra elements to them, it makes them more funner to play, and it really adds to the immersion, even for other players. So even if you're not fully invested in the character, just having all these little extras really helps for the other players kind of envision the game. So anyways, guys, I'm going to end it. I think I've yapped for over an hour, so hopefully this is helpful to you. I do have all the resources that I've used in the links. So here's Canva. Here's the channel I was telling you about Stovehove, that does all the player character builds. I mean, he does like every single build there is, and he does all the other tips. And then for developing the files and the file structure, you have the developer's guide for the Fantasy Grounds wiki Atlassian. And then they also talk to you about how to use the images and you know, how to add these assets to Fantasy Grounds. And then, of course, here's the image that I had, and this is a different version. I don't know what I'm going to do with that yet. Anyways, yeah, no problem, guys. You take care. Have a good one. I need to dig into that stuff. That was Fantasy Grounds Unity Wiki. Yeah, so the Wiki guide has a developer guide, which tells you like what sizes the images should be, especially if you're going to do conversions and stuff. But it's a general guideline too. And then there's working with images that kind of tells you how to import and how to manage, and also how to what all those menus are. Kind of gives you just a basic overview of the map tools and the drawing and such. So these are good and helpful, and I put a link for at least one of these in the end of the video. So yep, take care, you guys. Like I said, all these things will be in the end of the video at the end of the description.